Greetings, this is Bob Thompson with the Salt Lake County Watershed Planning and Restoration Program sharing the 2023 May 1st Snowpack Update presentation. We're presenting this information because we have a significant snowpack up in the mountainous areas. As you can see, this is a photo of the parking lot at Alta. That's a pretty significant snowpack. So where we stand statewide. All of the basins that are measured in the state by NRCS SNOTEL sites, and that's basically an automated SNOTEL measuring site, indicate those basins are well above average. Some of these numbers can start to get a little wonky this time of year because it's pretty hard to average out numbers when there normally is no snowpack with having a significant snowpack. So I think the takeaway from this slide is that all of the measured basins have well above average snowpacks. If we look at our individual basins, specifically, this is an aggregate of the SNOTEL sites that are located in the Jordan River Basin. You can see the 2023 water year is a very significant water year, but we're starting to have a little bit of melt, which is actually a really good thing. We've been waiting for this melt to happen for a little while now, and you can see this warm spell has provided just a little bit. We haven't melted nearly enough yet, but we're starting that process. Like I said, that's a really good thing. So looking at individual sites, this is the site at Lewis Meadow in City Creek Canyon. This site's about 6,700 feet in elevation. So you can see we had a tremendous amount of snow at that elevation earlier, and we've actually had not quite a third of this, but almost a third of that snowpack melt in this recent warming spell. Again, really good thing. It's kind of important to get rid of the snow from the different aspects and elevations independently if we can. So this one at lower elevation, it's a good thing to see this melting off now. Lookout Peak, we haven't melted nearly as much. We've just had a few inches of snow water equivalent melt off in this recent warming spell, so we're still very near max values, well over 50 inches of snow water in that snowpack. Parley Summit, this one's got a very long period of record. You can see the 1984 banner snow year. We finally sunk beneath that level, but we're just getting to the level that we had in 2011, almost exactly at the same place. 2011 was another massive snowpack, so we're hoping that doesn't melt off like it did in 84. You can see from roughly mid-May, it just cycled off in one fell swoop. We're hoping for kind of a truncated melt. So sometimes if we get a storm cycle in here like we did in 2011, you have a couple of those where you accumulate a little bit, but it extends the duration of the melt. That's a very good thing when we consider flooding. The longer duration we can have the snowpack melting, the lower our peaks and the greater duration of that melt cycle. That is what kind of reduces flooding in the long run. Moving further south, this is the Mill D SNOTEL station in Big Cottonwood Canyon. This one is measuring snow on the north side of the road, so it's a south-facing aspect. You can see there is still a tremendous amount of snow, and again, we really would like to see the north aspects and the south aspects melt independently, but the longer we carry that snowpack into the spring, the more they tend to have an additive effect to one another. All right, moving further up canyon, this is the Brighton SNOTEL site. We've had a little bit of melt there with this warm spell. We do have some weather coming in that may change that, but we are seeing a little bit of melt. Again, good news. Snowbird, this snowpack really has not much, it really hasn't changed very much with this warm cycle. We've had a little bit of a blip in it, but this one is a pretty high elevation SNOTEL site and it's on a north facing aspect. So we're probably not going to see much in the way of melt at this SNOTEL site for the foreseeable future. This snowpack probably has a little bit of time before it reaches that maturity and starts to melt. So what are we looking at coming up? The Wasatch Front has a bit of a wet forecast coming in the next 7 days. This is not supposed to be, they're not supposed to be major storms, but they are supposed to be somewhat warm storms. So we're probably going to see rain and showers down in the valleys and between the elevations of 6,500 and 8,000 feet where we still have a significant amount of snow. We could have some rain on snow there. And in the higher elevations, it's likely going to be some snow. So our monthly precipitation forecast, we're looking at roughly an average May, and May is usually a pretty wet month here in the Salt Lake Valley, so we should expect some storms blowing through. And seasonally, we're expecting kind of the same thing. So May, June, July, we're expecting normal weather. So that means probably some storms in May, drying out in June, and July is usually pretty warm. Temperature, I guess I should talk about warmth now. Temperature, we're actually forecast to be slightly above average in the Wasatch Front for the month of May. And getting into seasonal forecast, we're looking at about normal. So kind of what I just said in the previous slide. So now we're looking at the stream flow forecast for our region. In the Salt Lake area, we're looking at roughly 200% of forecasted flow. Now, that number should probably be taken with a grain of salt. It doesn't mean we're necessarily going to have 250% of our ordinary high water. I think the takeaway here is that streams in the Salt Lake Valley, Jordan Basin, and surrounding basins are going to be significantly higher than a normal runoff. So what that means is there's going to be more water moving through. It was very recently snow, so it's going to be very cold, and it's going to have an incredible amount of power as it moves through these stream channels. So even though this can be an attractive thing, a lot of folks want to go check that out because it is a fairly impressive natural phenomenon. It is not a safe phenomenon. So please, please, please keep your pets away from these streams, keep your kids away from these streams. The amount of power they have is absolutely staggering. So please keep yourself safe. So the next question is, where do we put all this water? Utah Lake is about 68% full. So this is our largest lake of local significance. That means we have approximately 3 feet of space in the top of this lake until we reach compromise level. So that's actually a fair amount of water that can still fill Utah Lake. Other local reservoirs, they are starting to fill up. So what that means is streams, creeks, rivers are going to take the brunt of this flow. So again, safety caution, please be mindful of how much power these streams can pack and give a wide berth. So I'd like to say thanks to our data partners. We collect data from the Central Utah Water Conservancy District, NOAA, NRCS, the Utah Division of Water Resources, and the Western Regional Climate Center. And this is a picture of my partner, Sam Taylor, collecting a snow sample up in Big Cottonwood Canyon. If you have any questions about this information, please feel free to contact Salt Lake County Flood Control. Numbers up there on the screen, as is our website for runoff preparedness and flood preparations. Thanks for listening.